Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. We are from Group 3. We will present about earning smoothing and earning management. For the first, let me introduce all the members. Number 1, there are Lian, Alvionita, Sari with last ID number 128. Alya, Atifa, Nurrohmah with last ID number 193. Melinda Dwi Harwanto, last ID number 214. Gevin, Nadila, Febrianti, last ID number 456. And Novia, Setyo, Ambarwanti with last ID number 460.
So in here I'll explain about the earning smoothing hypothesis. So Carton theorizes income smoothing as follows. Proposition 1. The criterion used by a firm's management in choosing between accounting principle is the maximization of its utility of prosperity. Provision 2. A management's utility increases with 1. Its job security, 2. The level of income and the growth rate of management income, and 3. The size of the company and the growth rate of company size. Provision 3. The achievement of the management objective state in Provision 2 that depends in part on the shareholders' satisfaction with the company's performance. That is, other things being equal, the happier the shareholders, the higher the security income and of the management. Provision 4. Shareholders' satisfaction with a company increases with the average growth rate in the company's income or the average rate of return on its capital and the stability of its income. This proposition is readily verifiable as Proposition 2 theorem. If all four propositions are accepted or true, then management within the limits of its power, example the wiggle room allowed by accounting rules, flatten reported income and flatten the growth rate of income. What is meant by leveling the growth rate of income is that if the growth rate is high, accounting practices that reduce it should be adopted and vice versa. Okay, the next is motivation for flattening. So Page-Mind considers two reasons for management to flatten reported earnings, namely, the first argument is based on the assumption that a steady stream of earnings is a more capable proponent of a higher dividend rate than a more variable stream of earnings, having a beneficial effect on the value of the firm's shares because of the lower total risks of the firm. He states, to the extent that the observed variability of a reported earnings trends affects investors' subjective expectation of possible future earnings and dividend yields, management can affect favorably the value of the firm's shares by flattening earnings. The second argument for smoothing is the ability to overcome the cyclical nature of reported earnings and reduce the correlation of the firm's expected return with the return of the market portfolio. He states, to the degree that auto normalization of earnings successful and that a reduction in the covariance of returns with the market is recognized by investors and incorporated in their evaluation process, smoothing will add a beneficial influence on stock value. As About objects of smoothing. So basically the object of smoothing should be based on the most likely and most used financial indication, like example earnings. Since earnings smoothing is not a visible phenomenon, the literature estimates various forms of profit statements as the most likely objects of smoothing. Researchers choose net income or earnings per share indicators as the object of smoothing due to the belief that management's long-term concern is with net income, and users of financial statement usually look at the most recent figures, either earnings or earnings per share. The next is dimensions of smoothing. The dimensions of smoothing are basically ways to achieve a smoothing of income figures. Testers and Malcolm distinguish between real smoothing and artificial smoothing as follows. Real smoothing refers to actual transactions done or not done on the basis of their smoothing effect on income, while artificial smoothing refers to accounting procedures implemented to move costs on and or revenue from one period to another. Besides real and artificial smoothing, there are other dimensions of smoothing discussed in the literature. A popular classification adds a third dimension of smoothing called classificatory smoothing. The last is about smoothing variables. So smoothing tools or instruments are variables used to flatten the selected performance indicators. Copeland outlines 5 necessary conditions for a leveling instrument as follows. Number 1, once used, the instrument does not have to commit the company to any particular action in the future. The second is the smoothing instrument must be based on the application of provisional judgment and is expected to be within the area of generally accepted accounting principle. The third is the smoothing instrument must lead to a material movement in relative earnings difference from year to year. The next is the smoothing instrument does not require a transaction to be completed. The smoothing instrument does not require a real transaction with a second party, but only a reclassification or internal account balance. The last is the smoothing instrument must be used alone or together with other practices over a period of time. That's all from me. Thank you.
Next is about earning management as actual management. Basically, the operational definition of earning management is the potential use of actual management for the purpose of personal gain. The following relationship is very important to be able to understand earning management of actual management. The first one is total accrual, same as statement of net income minus operating cash flow, and the second one is total accrual, same as net and the next is accrual model. The accrual model involves the calculation of total accruals. For this reason, the total accrual model is present first, followed by the preferred accrual model. For the preferred accrual model, there are 6 types. The first one is the angel model. The second one is Heli model. The third one is chance model. The fourth one is modified chance model and industry model, and the last is Kang and Sivarangan Kishan model. And now about pricing error or private accrual. Investors commonly use information to predict future earnings, but focus too much on reported earnings. In fact, the accruals and cash flow components of earnings can reveal mispriced stocks. Earnings predictions is affected by the portion of cash and accruals, but the market often misjudges them, overestimating accruals and underestimating cash flow. As a result, the market is often surprised when earnings turn around, even profit could have been predicted. And the next is about issues in earnings management. There are 12 issues in earnings management. The first is earning management is often done to meet analyst expectations or internal targets. The second is one of the objectives is to influence short-term stock prices. The third is this practice persists due to asymmetric information between managers and outsiders. The fourth is earnings management arises in flexible reporting system and certain contracts. The fifth is common tactics include the selection of accounting standards, subjective estimates, and timing of transactions. The sixth is exercise focus on quarterly earnings report encourage this practice. The seventh is about key objective. The eighth is may arise from implicit compensation contracts. The ninth is influenced by industry regulatory pressure and antitrust law. The 10 is managers are encouraged to manipulate to avoid political or legal risks. The 11 is increasing company valuation is also a common motive. And the last one is that negative earnings have more impact than previous earnings projection. And the next material will delivered by my friends.
Okay, in here I will explain about paradigm accounting, its evolution or revolution in accounting. Various approaches are used to formulate an accounting theory. Based on the strength and weakness of each approach, we can expect that the situation will lead to a fruitful debate and a unified theory of accounting. This view will probably be advanced by all those who believe that progress in accounting will occur through the accumulation of ideas or evolution. Such a view entails accepting most of the proposed approach as potential contributors to a final, unified, or comprehensive theory of accounting. However, a stronger or more logical view is that accounting, like most social and natural science, achieve progress through revolution, not evolution. And the last is accounting, a multi-paradigm science. If accounting is in a crisis stage, then it becomes possible to identify various competing paradigms. In other words, accounting is a multi-paradigm science with each competing for control of the discipline. Following Richard's definition of paradigm, each of the existing accounting paradigm will contain its own example, theories, and method. More specifically, each of today's competing accounting paradigm tends to specify the empirical domain in which an accounting theory should reside.
Okay, that's all the presentation from us. More or less, I apologize. Wassalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.